Hello everyone, I'm starting a brand new series where I draw some of my ships. So there's really not a whole lot to this, pretty much what you would expect from a series about this, but basically I'm going to be drawing my ships, talking about my drawing process, and talking about like why I ship them, why I think they'd work, and some headcanons that I have. So yeah, this first one is going to be Shadamy. Now I'm going to be talking about like why I ship it. For a really long time, when I was more first getting into the Sonic fandom, I kind of didn't really ship Shadow with anybody. I mean, like with his canon personality and like where he is right now in the franchise, he doesn't even really have friends aside from like Rouge and Omega, and even still those are more kind of like teammates, not exactly friends. Like I don't think that they would necessarily hang out, but basically as being a Sonic fan for longer and consuming a ton of media, my idea on that has changed. So of course with like his current personality, like his canon personality, like he really is just focused on himself and his life and his rules and all that. So when I say that I like these ships, there's a lot of like thought that goes behind this. So specifically with Shadamy, at first I really didn't care for the ship. Like I thought they looked really cute together, but nothing really stood out to me. I wasn't like against it by any means, but it wasn't just something that was like, that's a really cute ship, I like that a lot. But over time, seeing more fan arts and like animatics and just a bunch of stuff like that, it really grew on me more. And so after some time and like a little bit of thinking, I was like, wait a minute, this really works. And I'm gonna explain why I think it works and like my interpretation of it all. So basically, first off, I imagine this to be when they're both older. They're not 15 or like 13 anymore. They're like young adults and they're like very early 20s. And if you remember, or if you know about Sonic Adventure 2, at the very end, Amy reminds Shadow of his best friend, Maria, and Maria is like super sweet and super caring and very bubbly. Shadow saw Maria in Amy, and like it caused him to like totally like change his viewpoint on things. So that's like the first thing. And also, he smiled when Amy hugged her in Sonic Adventure 2 as well. So those are two things that are kind of canon. Could be just like friendship, could be totally something, but like to me that's kind of like Shadamy. Like he has a soft spot for Amy. So yeah. But basically Amy mechanically, is that how you say, reminds Shadow of Maria. And of course, if you like Sonic, which I assume that you do, that's a really big deal. And so, yeah. And I imagine, like I said, this to be when they're like in their early 20s, when Amy finally moves on from Sonic. I do ship Sonamy, but in a very different way. So kind of with Shadamy, I feel like this would be after Amy finally gets over Sonic. And I have like angst ideas for Sonamy, but that will be when I actually talk about Sonamy in its own video. But basically, like I said, it's when Amy finally gets over Sonic, and she helps Shadow kind of break away from his cold shell. So like Shadow kind of is he's his own person completely, and he kind of hides away. He's very cold, and he doesn't really let anybody in, like hardly. So like he kind of almost already did with Sonic Adventure 2 when she reminded him of Maria. And I imagine from that point, like Shadow always had kind of had a soft spot in him for Amy, but nothing like more than like platonic or anything. But as like years went by, I imagine like maybe they met again, or like kind of were like forced to hang out a little bit or something like that, and they kind of just kept talking more and more, and I just think that it's a very cute ship. I imagine that she really helps him to learn to love again and not be like afraid of that, and that is just very wholesome and cute. I do have like more angst. I really like angst for whatever reason. Like, of course, like Shadow is immortal, so he can't die, but Amy isn't, so she'd die someday, and maybe the cycle would continue for Shadow where he becomes cold because he lost someone that was very dear to him again. But anyway, so like I feel like they just have a very cute ship dynamic. Like Amy is like the sun and he's the moon, and she's like a yapper and he's a listener, and she's like cute and small, and but then he's like edgy, but they're both strong, which I love. I love strong like female characters that aren't like a damsel in distress. I hate that, but Amy isn't, and I love her for it. Honestly, all Sonic girls are like that, and it's the best. And yeah, I also really like yandere AUs with Shadamy, and also like Sonic tied in because of like, you know, Son Amy is canon to an extent, so like I really like that combination. But I'm not like super invested into it, but I do really like yandere AUs where Shadow and Sonic both like Amy, and I imagine that Shadow kills Sonic to get Amy's attention. But yeah, more stuff like that I won't get super heavy on. But yeah, I also think that he really admires her boldness and like her strength, because like Shadow is a very strong character himself and is very bold and very grounded in what he believes, and Amy is like that as well, but not like as firm, not as cold. Like she has like bubbliness and cutesiness, meanwhile he's just like very cold. Not all the time, but sometimes. But I think that he would definitely admire that, and that's probably something that would make him start to like her, aside from like the Sonic Adventure to Maria type thing. But like, you know, when he finally like realizes he has feelings for her, that's probably what I imagine it to be. And if you are familiar with Twitter takeovers, I personally consider them canon. Some people don't, but I think the majority of Sonic fans consider it canon. So they go to concerts together a lot. Like first it was Taylor Swift, and next it's Sabrina Carpenter. So I'm gonna like elaborate on that a little bit. So basically, they go to concerts together, like they hang out. And also, there was like Shadow Amy moments in Twitter takeovers. Like, there was basically Amy simping over Shadow in them. And I was like, whoa. Like, I just love how Sega, like, is so familiar with what the fan base is on about. But yeah, basically, they go to concerts together. And I imagine, like, Amy is the one that loves that, like, Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter. Meanwhile, I bet Shadow appreciates it, doesn't hate it or anything, but mostly just goes with Amy because they're buddies. Meanwhile, he likes, like, 30 Days Grace, My Chemical Romance, Red, and so, like, they take turns with, like, concerts. So, like, they'll always go together, but, like, they'll take turns with the genre, if that makes sense. And I also like have a headcanon that they would like match adorable outfits together, like in any different kind of like alternative fashion. Like I imagine she would be like really cute, sweet Lolita, and then he'd be wearing like, I don't know, just something like with pink, and then he's wearing black. I love that combination, and it's the cutest thing ever. And like, I don't know, I think they would just be divas together. I think that they would also be kind of prone to having arguments, at least at first anyways, because they're both very bold and headstrong, and kind of, not always for Amy, but you know, kind of does what they please and say what's on their mind. So I imagine at first they would have some arguments and kind of get mad at each other sometimes, but in the end like work it out and just giggle over it at the end. But yeah, A lot of people used to hate this ship. Like, apparently it used to be, like, really badly hated for some reason, like, way before I was in the fandom. But it seems that now people are shipping it more, and it's getting pretty popular, and I love it. I love it so much. I also imagined that after a while, Shadow would teach Amy how to use his motorcycle and his guns, which I think would be so funny and so cute to see. Like, because, like, again, she's, like, a strong character and, like, very bold, and I could just see her tiny pink self holding a big, huge black gun, and I don't know, like, on a motorcycle with Shadow. It's just such a beautiful picture. I should definitely learn how to draw motorcycles and then draw that. But yeah, and that's basically it for, like, my headcanons and my thoughts on Shadamy for now. I definitely will have more thoughts and stuff over time, but as of right now, those are all my thoughts. So now I'm going to be talking a bit about my drawing process. So first off, rendering Amy's skin specifically was giving me some trouble. I'm not really sure why, but I felt like it kept looking too dark or too muddy. Like, I don't know, I was just struggling with it. I had, like, slight art block for this week, and which was really a pain because I have, like, a few art trades to be finishing. And, like, if you're watching this and I owe you an art trade, I am so sorry. I don't know, like, I've been struggling to draw this past week. I promise you I'm going to get them done. I will not forget. I just am struggling to draw. Like, this drawing specifically took me a few tries to feel satisfied. So yeah, I'm sorry, but like I said, I will not forget about it. But yeah, I'm not particularly, like, super happy with this drawing. I really like the eyes and stuff, but just something about it just doesn't seem right. I think it's the rendering. But it's not, like, horrible or anything. I don't see this drawing and I think, ugh, this is awful. It just doesn't fit in with most of my drawings, I feel, if that makes sense at all. But yeah, I really like the pose. I think it looks really good. I did have a lot of struggle drawing it, mostly just because of Amy's dress. Amy's dress is, like, not, like, flowy or anything. It's like just straight sticks out, and it can be so confusing to draw sometimes with, like, certain poses, and this was one of them. I tried my best. I wanted it to still look like her dress but also make sense in the pose, and it was just a bit confusing, and I kind of compromised at the end. I don't think it looks horrible, but I could have done better, but I was just tired of retrying over and over. But yeah, I added, like, white lashes to the bottom of the eye. I used to see this all the time, and I really like it. I sometimes add it to my drawings, sometimes not. I really like how it looks in this one though. I might keep it, I might not. I have no idea, but I really liked doing it this time. And overall, this drawing took me about 5 hours. So not too bad. This kind of disappointing for how I feel like this drawing turned out, but I'm not complaining.